Episode 2. Welcome to Betsy's Short Stories. Today we join Leonard and Leroy as they find themselves face to face with a couple of criminals. How will they save Mrs. Thompson and Mrs. Johnson from these desperate crooks? Buckle up, because things are about to get wild. As the sun peeked through the blinds of the bungling brothers' office, it cast light on the cluttered desks. Big T sat behind his desk, leaning back in his chair, a doobie in one hand and a phone in the other. He finished a call, a satisfied grin on his face. "Yo, Double L, get in here," he called out. Leroy outside stretched and yawned before jogging into the office, a bounce in his step. Leonard, munching on leftover pizza, walked into Big T's office and let out a big, loud, smelly belch. "Ah, I feel much better," he exclaimed. Big T shot him a sharp look. "Can you be a little more disgusting?" "Just got off the phone with old lady Johnson. She recommended you two for a big job today," Big T replied. Leonard perked up. "Really?" "I know, I can't believe it either," Big T admitted. "What's the job?" Leroy chimed in. "You're moving a family heirloom, a gigantic old refrigerator. It's got more stories than an old man at a bar," Big T explained. Leroy chuckled. "I hope it's not filled with expired leftovers." As they left Big T's office, Leonard, all smiles, declared, "We are going to be rich. Just gotta keep our customers happy." Leroy headed to prep the truck while Leonard finished the paperwork. He hopped into the driver's seat and started the engine. Suddenly, he heard the wailing of sirens. A swarm of police cars raced by, lights flashing. Leroy leaned out the window, eyes wide. "What's going on out there? Looks like trouble," he muttered. Distracted, Leroy forgot to lock the back of the truck. He jumped out and rushed back inside to grab Leonard. Inside, Leonard was still scribbling notes when Leroy burst in breathless. "Leonard, you won't believe what's happening outside. There are cops everywhere." "Cops? What do you mean?" Leonard asked, finally looking up. "There's a chase. You gotta see this," Leroy exclaimed. They headed outside together, but unbeknownst to them, a man and woman, Sketch and Peace, were sprinting down the street, glancing back in panic. They spotted the back of the truck, slightly ajar. With a quick exchange of glances, they leaped inside, hiding among the boxes. Back in the truck, Leonard and Leroy were animatedly discussing the job. Leroy opened the back door to toss in some extra straps, completely unaware of their new passengers. "Let's get this fridge moved. I'm ready to roll," Leroy said enthusiastically. Leonard hopped into the passenger seat, clipboard in hand. "Okay, let's head to Mrs. Thompson's." As they arrived at Mrs. Thompson's upscale apartment complex, Leroy hopped out and opened the back door. To his shock, he found Sketch and Peace pointing guns at him. He froze, unable to speak. "Surprise! We were hired to help you with the job today," Sketch smirked, the gun steady in his hand. Leroy's eyes widened in disbelief. "What the hell? You're not supposed to be in here." "Looks like you're stuck with us now," Peace added, her tone dripping with menace. Leonard, still focused on his clipboard, nudged Leroy. "Come on, grab the straps so we can get moving." Then he looked up and saw the gunman and woman. What's going on here?" he stammered. "Big T sent us," Sketch said, a smug grin in his face. "This is a big job." Just then the tension in the air thickened as they realized the fridge wasn't the only heavy burden they had to move today. They entered the apartment, and Mrs. Thompson greeted them warmly. "You're running a bit late. Word of advice, always be early for any job. It leaves a good impression." She noticed the extra two. "I thought there were only two of you, but I see you've brought extra help for today. Good thinking." As they entered the kitchen, they were met with a sight to behold. A massive retro-style fridge, ugly and imposing. Leroy grinned, but Leonard's eyes darted around. "We got to start by emptying this baby out," he declared, opening the door and starting to rummage through. "Wait, where's the chocolate chip cookie dough? Doesn't everyone keep that in their fridges? Leonard asked, searching desperately. Mrs. Thompson shrugged, chuckling. I'm afraid not, but I have brownies. She pulled out a tray. Leonard, eyes lighting up, snatched a brownie. Perfect, he said, taking a bite. Leroy grabbed one too, and Mrs. Thompson rolled her eyes playfully. As they strategized how to move the fridge, the newcomers helped push. The fridge was enormous and cumbersome, and chaos ensued as they tried to maneuver it. This thing is heavier than it looks, Leroy grunted. It's like trying to move my sister Jacqueline, Leonard joked. She's been working hard, though, down to 320 pounds now. We should have brought a forklift. Suddenly, they heard a loud scraping noise as they accidentally damaged the wall. Leonard winced. Uh-oh. I told Mrs. Thompson we should hang a towel over it. No one will notice the hole. Hurry up, boys. You're taking longer than expected. Mrs. Thompson raised an eyebrow. Finally, they got the fridge into the truck. Leroy, feeling adventurous, decided to let Peace drive. Want to take the wheel, he asked. Sure, she replied confidently, sliding into the driver's seat. Leroy hopped into the back with Sketch. As they drove, Leroy glanced at Sketch and noticed the gun tucked into his waistband. His heart raced. Hey, what's with the piece? Just a precaution, my friend, Sketch smirked, the weight of the gun making Leroy uneasy. Leroy's stomach dropped. You're serious about this, huh? Just then a police officer spotted the vehicle. Hey, stop right there, he shouted. Panic ensued as Peace floored the gas pedal and the truck sped away. The chase began. Why are we speeding? Leonard asked, bewildered. Peace shot him a look. Do we look like movers? We ain't dumb enough to work that hard. Inside the truck, Leroy and Sketch were being bounced around. They held on tight to the fridge. Peace called Sketch on the phone. Sketch, they found us. We need to get them off our tail, Peace said, glancing nervously in the rear-view mirror. I got an idea, Sketch replied. You work on losing those pigs. As the police cars closed in, Sketch opened the back and started throwing fridge shelves out at the truck. What are you doing? Leroy shouted. We can't damage the fridge. But Sketch was relentless. One shelf hit a police cruiser, sending it swerving into a ditch. You're the ones the cops have been chasing? Leroy exclaimed, now terrified. We're gonna die. Relax, just keep your head down, Sketch yelled, trying to steer them clear. Leroy, holding on for dear life, tried to show he wasn't afraid. We can't disappoint Mrs. Thompson, he shouted, attempting to protect the fridge as they took a sharp corner. The sudden turn sent him tumbling out of the truck. He hit the ground, rolling but quickly hugging the fridge to protect it from rolling away. He waved at the oncoming police cars, desperate to get their attention. From inside the truck, Leonard grabbed the wheel to help steer. Turn around, Peace, he shouted. With a swift maneuver, they lost the police cars, but as they turned back, they spotted Leroy lying on the fridge, all scratched up, with a rip in his pants and blood on his jeans and hands. Leonard jumped out frantic. Are you okay, Leroy? I saved the fridge, Leroy exclaimed, looking dazed but proud. I didn't want to disappoint anyone. The group managed to haul the fridge back into the truck. Leroy refused to leave it behind, even as they all caught their breath. This fridge is going with us, he declared. With everyone back in the truck, Leonard took the wheel this time. They sped off toward the storage unit, trying to ignore the chaos of the chase behind them. As they pulled up to the storage unit, they saw Mrs. Thompson and Mrs. Johnson waiting by the entrance, looking concerned. Suddenly, Sketch and Peace spotted the ladies and jumped out of the truck, brandishing their weapons. Without hesitation, they shoved the guns to Mrs. Johnson's and Mrs. Thompson's heads, forcing them into their car. Drive, Sketch ordered, and they took off down the road, leaving Leonard and Leroy in shock. What just happened? Leroy gasped, eyes wide. We can't just let them get away. We have to save them, Leonard said, determination in his voice. Despite the warning not to follow, the two jumped back into their truck, adrenaline pumping through their veins. They followed Sketch and Peace to an old, dirty neighborhood, the kind that looked like it hadn't seen a paint job in decades. They watched as the criminals pulled into a rundown house with shattered windows. "What the hell is this place?" Leroy whispering, peering over. "Looks like a horror movie set. We need to be careful," Leonard replied, his eyes narrowing. They parked a safe distance away and watched as the ladies were dragged out of the car and into the house. The front door slammed shut behind them, and the house seemed to breathe in an eerie silence. Determined to save Mrs. Johnson and Mrs. Thompson, Leonard and Leroy snuck up to the back of the house. They found a side door slightly ajar. "Let's go," Leonard whispered, and they slipped inside, the musty smell hitting them hard. Inside, they discovered another refrigerator sitting in the corner, seemingly untouched. Leroy opened it slowly, dreading what might be inside. He pulled out items one by one: a set of fake teeth, a jug of what looked like lemonade, and a strange container filled with something yellow. "What the?" Leroy started, but before he could finish, Leonard, thinking he found a refreshing drink, took a swig from the jug. "This is disgusting," he yelled, spitting it all over the floor. "What kind of a lemonade is this?" Mrs. Thompson's eyes widened as she realized what it was. "That's not lemonade. It looks like urine." Leonard's face paled, and he suddenly looked green around the gills. "Urine?" he exclaimed, gagging. Just as he started to vomit, Leroy burst out laughing. "Take one for the team," Leroy grinned, slapping Leonard on the back. Just then the door creaked open and Sketch and Peace emerged, looking smug. "What are you doing here?" Sketch growled, his gun poised. "We don't care what you are up to. We just want Mrs. J and Mrs. T back," Leonard shouted, his voice shaking but determined. "You think you can just walk in here?" Peace sneered, pointing her gun at them. Before they could react, Leroy grabbed the jug and hurled it at Sketch, who ducked just in time. The jug smashed against the wall, splattering yellow liquid everywhere. "You could have at least warned me," Leonard shouted, wiping his mouth. "I thought it was lemonade," Leroy retorted, readying himself for a fight. As the confrontation escalated, Leonard spotted a fire extinguisher on the wall. "Cover me," he yelled to Leroy. "With what? My charm?" Leroy quipped, but he quickly positioned himself between Leonard and the criminals. Leonard grabbed the extinguisher, swung it open, and sprayed foam everywhere, blinding Sketch and Peace. "What the?" Sketch muttered, stumbling around. "Run," Leroy shouted, and they bolted toward the door. As they rushed outside, they saw Mrs. Johnson and Mrs. Thompson tied up in the trunk of the car. "We have to get them," Leonard shouted, but the criminals were hot on their heels. "Hurry," Leroy urged, and they sprinted toward the truck, fumbling with the lock. Just as they managed to free the ladies, Sketch and Peace burst out of the house, still coughing from the foam. "You won't get away that easily," Peace snarled, firing a shot that echoed through the air. The bullet grazed Mrs. Johnson's arm, and she gasped, clutching her wound. "No, get down," Leonard shouted, instinct kicking in as he shoved her behind the truck. "Get in the car," Leroy shouted, adrenaline coursing through him as he pulled Mrs. Thompson to safety. A gunfight erupted in the chaos. Sketch and Peace fired wildly, bullets ricocheting off the metal of the truck. Leroy ducked behind the hood, his heart racing. "We need to get out of here." Leonard quickly scanned the area, spotting the fire extinguishers still lying on the ground. "Cover me," he shouted to Leroy as he made a break for it. He grabbed the extinguisher and aimed for Peace. With a soft motion, he pressed the nozzle and unleashed a cloud of foam, hitting her square in the face. "What the?" she yelled, blinded. "Now, Leroy," Leonard yelled, and they moved fast. With a surge of determination, they rushed Mrs. Johnson and Mrs. Thompson toward the truck. But Sketch wasn't done yet. He reloaded his weapon, aiming for Leroy, who was trying to secure the trunk. "Get back," Leroy shouted as he dove to the side, narrowly missing a bullet. "Let's go," Leonard shouted as they all piled into the truck, the refrigerator still rattling in the back. As they drove away from the chaotic scene, Leonard glanced back nervously. "Do you think they'll come after us?" Mrs. Thompson scoffed, adjusting her glasses despite the chaos. "After that display, they'll think twice." "And let's never speak of the lemonade again," Leonard muttered, shaking his head. Leroy laughed. You took one for the team, my friend. We'll have a story to tell. As they reached the storage unit, Mrs. Thompson handed them each a crisp $200 tip. For your bravery and a job well done, she smiled, despite the chaos. Leonard's eyes lit up. Really? Thank you, Mrs. Thompson. Mrs. Thompson continued, but I also have another job for you. As she walked toward her car, she turned back and asked, Are you afraid of ghosts? Leonard and Leroy exchanged glances, their earlier bravado faltering. No, they said in unison. Why? Leroy asked, a hint of trepidation creeping in. Mrs. Thompson smiled. No reason, she said, her eyes sparkling with mischief. Dear listeners, as you reflect on tonight's outrageous escapade, consider this. Life often throws us into chaotic situations where we must confront our fears and face unexpected dangers. The choices we make in those moments define us. Are you willing to take risks for those you care about, or will you stand idly by while chaos unfolds? Remember, courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the resolve to confront it head on. So the next time you find yourself in a tight spot, ask yourself, what are you willing to fight for?